In this episode, I'm going to be doing anti-wheel intrusion bars. First thing as always is to go over the rules and what to keep in mind. So for the anti-wheel intrusion bar, there's really only two things to take into consideration. The first one is going to be where you are going to weld the anti-wheel intrusion bar to the roll cage itself. Your goal in building the roll cage is always to create nodes because that makes the strongest point possible. So I just tied it into the same points as my door bar right there. So it's one node over there and one node over there, which is what you're going to try and do because that's going to make the strongest points. The second thing to take into consideration is where you're going to put your base plate and where the anti-wheel intrusion bar is going to connect to the firewall. You want to make sure that you don't make that too high. Now, as you can see where mine is 2 to 3 inches above like where the pedals actually sit. So it sits above 2 to 3 inches, like right at that level, which is what you want because this is meant for foot protection. So this is always when your feet are on the pedal, you're going to try and stop a wheel from intruding in and basically like breaking a foot or breaking a leg. I've seen some anti-wheel intrusion bars where just to pass tech, they make the anti-wheel intrusion bar just come straight out from the dash bar, or knee bar as it's called, just go straight out there to the firewall and then have one point going down to the lower base plate. So you end up having your base plate for the anti-wheel intrusion bar being legit all the way up there, which your base plate being up there for an anti-wheel intrusion bar isn't protecting your feet all the way down here. So if you do something like that, will it still pass tech? Yes, it will. I've seen a ton of pro cars that do it. Is it the safest option, and is it safer than doing it that way? No. Also, one last thing, just make sure that when you do place your anti-wheel intrusion bar there, that you take into consideration where your clutch pedal's at and where your dead pedal's at, so that way you don't get in the way of any of that. Alright, that covers the criteria for the anti-wheel intrusion bar, so now we got to move on to making it. First step in the process is going to be to make the base plates. So I'm going to make the base plate 3x3. Rules stated that you need to have at least a 2x2, so I'm going to go 1 inch over. That's going to be nice. There's my 3x3 base plate. Looking at the firewall, I'm going to be removing the tab right there that's in the way of putting the base plate, so I'll just be taking that off with the angle grinder. Now with the driver's side of the firewall, I'm going to do the same thing with that tab. Now that the area where the base plates are supposed to go are all made smooth, I can then weld prep it and then weld the base plates in place. Now that I have my base plate in place, the first tube I'm going to be mocking up is the top tube for this anti-wheel intrusion bar. The angle was roughly 25 on here, which you got to subtract it from 90, so it ended up needing a 65-degree notch. So I then have my 65-degree notch on a template, and I'm going to transfer this to my piece of tubing and then notch it out and see how it fits. Now I can cut my notch out. Okay, senor, here's the notch. With the notch done, I moved on to doing my normal prep, which involves beveling the edges, taking down the tube to bare metal, then cleaning out the inside of the tube, and then wiping it down with acetone. Okay, so I got the top tube in position, so that's looking like where it's gonna go. Got the notch up top. Got a 4-degree angle cut on the bottom right there. Got this side matching up exactly like that as well. So I'll just go tack it in place. It's a 1.5 inch tube and it's a 3x3 square, which means that there's an inch and a half room up or down or side to side, which basically means that 3/4 of an inch up or down side to side for in these areas. So I just measured 3/4 of an inch from the side here, 3/4 of an inch from the top, make sure it's centered, weld it. Now I'm going to get started on the lower bar. Oh, that disc was like brand new. Stuff adds up too, by the way. All those people that are like, how much your build cost? I don't know. How many cutoff discs I've gone through so far? How much cutting oil? That stuff adds up. "70-degree notch here, 47-degree notch here." With the notch done, it's time to weld it in place. At this point, I've laid a bead right there and I only have the other 3 tacked, and those are the ones that are actually holding it to the car right now. Same thing with this side, welded there, only tacked on the rest. So what I'm gonna do now is break those 3 tacks and then actually remove the anti-wheel intrusion bars so I can fully weld around that one tube intersecting the other tube because I can't reach it in the car. And then after that, I'll put everything back in and then fully weld around the rest. I'm gonna mark everything so it's easier to put back in. So here's my anti-wheel intrusion bar taken out now from the driver's side. And this area right here is basically near impossible to actually weld while inside the car. And I've actually gone up to specific FD drivers before, asked to check out their cars, and I go feel behind their anti-wheel intrusion bars, and I don't feel any welds over here. So there's actually quite a few people that can't even reach it. So I thought ahead of time from seeing that, and I wanted to make sure I could reach behind there. So tack, 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 cut those out. And now I'm gonna do beads on here, and then I can put this in, do full beads around everything else because I'm pretty sure I can get coverage on them. And I should have my anti-wheel intrusion bars fully welded. Definitely better welds than what I was gonna get on the car. That's 100% for sure. Did a nice long continuous bead right there. that part was a little bit messed up from inside the car. And yeah, so that's good. Now I'm gonna put this in the car and then do my best at welding it there. God damn it, I ran out of wire. How's anyone supposed to weld back there? That's where they want it too. That's why no one in FD fucking welds that. Like, how can you? Imagine doing the whole back side of this? It's impossible. Okay, so cage is now done. Finally. Like, this is FD now. Like, you know, I don't have to touch it. Done. Done, done, done. Yes! Okay, that is finally welded in. Both sides have been welded in. It was extremely difficult to weld around the back sides of those. So, like, the front welds are pretty solid. Then as soon as it starts going towards the back, that's where it gets all sketchy. But I've seen drivers, they're not even welded. So as long as I still have weld going all the way around, I feel like that's better than no weld at all. So that's good. Plus that is fully welded in between, which a lot of people don't even do that, which means that's going to hold that whole piece together and keep it from splitting apart and doing all sorts of weird stuff. So I think that's going to be a solid piece. That includes doing anti-wheel intrusion bars. Definitely something worthwhile to do on a cage because that's a lot of added safety factor and doesn't take up much time at all to add. The next episode is going to be the last episode in the series covering the cage build, and that's going to be going over gussets as well as any other additional supports to add to the cage. So I'll see you guys then. Oh my god. You know what, I'm trying to keep cool. I haven't had the best days. But, you know, today goes fucking planned either. Just gonna get these last beads done so I can continue my fucking life.